we're just gonna have like a sort of like free-form seminar discussion about whether or not we think Jackson's presidency was change or continuity. Leora has written a bunch of stuff on the board about previous presidents and, you know, some other fun information that you might want to know about Adams, Jefferson, Madison, Monroe, and John Quincy Adams, and then a little bit about Jackson too. And you can use your notes, obviously, and we're just gonna have a little discussion, and I'll just be here to moderate. Okay. Someone talk. Kira.
I think it was continuity and not change.
Why?
Because he didn't do anything that was very different from what other presidents had already been doing.
Examples?
Well, I can't give an example of something he didn't do, but he did do some things that were what other presidents had done. Like he vetoed a lot of big infrastructure projects, which is things that Monroe and Madison had also done a lot.
Okay. You can call the next person.
I would say that I think it's some of both, but I would say it's more change than continuity because of the because he was so interested in appealing to the common man, and I think that policy, although Jefferson wanted a world of rural farmers that may have seemed like that, Jackson really was, or at least appeared as a common man, and he preached those values to the rest of the country and made decisions in favor of the common men. And I think that he was the first president to really do that.
Call the next person.
Meta.
I also think that it was change, because I think like one of the most interesting and like most change things that he did was his whole like spoils system thing, where he was trying to like, in my opinion after doing research, I think that he was trying to like cheat the system and make everything like in his favor and just fire people and hire like his friends or his supporters, and I think that like kind of skewed everything in his favor, and that's like a big thing that it didn't seem like other presidents had done before him. Jared?
Yeah, another argument for change, I think, if you have your Mexico textbook, it's on page 192, it talks about politics and the common man, or of the common man, and it says between 1824 and 1840, like politics shifted from being like this like upper class, like only for like rich like aristocrats to more of like an everyday thing. More people are getting involved with like popular participation. You see like universal male suffrage, it's like a step towards women's suffrage, and this happens in the Jacksonian era, so I think this is like a big shift in what democracy means for the country. Yeah.
Okay. Some of the things that like he did was change, like he wasn't necessarily like a point of change from it. Like for example, he kind of broke some of the like set rules about what a president can do, like with like the spoil system, but also like by overriding Supreme Court decisions. Which like I don't know. It's like a little bit different from like what other presidents did, and like all the other Supreme Court decisions you kind of accepted.
Yeah, I also agree with Annie about what she said. I think that there's like some aspects of change and some aspects of continuity within his presidency. Like obviously a lot of the social issues didn't change. Like Native Americans were like still really marginalized, and so were like African American people, and so were women for the most part. But I think that he really changed the way that the country views the president, because I think that he took a lot of executive power into his own hands and really like created the idea that we all have now, that like the president is the most powerful person in this country. And I think he also revolutionized the whole election process and campaigning process, using like mudslinging against John Quincy Adams during his campaign in 1828. he like basically like set the way for the modern campaigning and like attack ads.
But they had those before him too.
But he really like started to utilize them a lot. Like he ran an entire like mudslinging
They
campaign.
had a lot more
They had
vicious
those-
being targeted.
Like very pointed at
There
John Quincy
were-
Adams.
Definitely, like I don't know about the Madison and Monroe ones, but during the like Jefferson and Adams elections, they were really, really intense.
But it wasn't like
ones.
coming out saying like the things about his wife and
Yeah, it wasn't like what is that
Personal
question
attacks.
called? Ad hominem? Is
I
that
don't
what they're
remember.
called? I don't know. Dr.
Yeah.
Bush.
I think
Okay,
there were
um,
definitely those. Okay.
Ilana.
Okay, I think that actually, like, I think that it was a time of change, but I don't think Jackson was the specific change. I think that in reality, it was kind of, Jackson was a symbol for the change that was occurring in America, because once you start getting a more democratic system, which is what happened in the parties when they stopped moving from a king's caucus to a, actual voting system with everyone in the party, I think that that means that everyone has to, like, it creates a different kind of society and system for voting, and then that means that new kinds of people are gonna be elected, the kind of people that everyone can sympathize with, and Jackson could be sympathized with everyone. He was rich, but he also worked with the frontier people, not volunteers, and he, he showed that he was he had emotions, clearly, because he was very violent. But I think that because of just who he was as a person, that's the kind of person that they were going to elect anyways. And all his actions in office, like being personal, like the Peggy Eden affair, like that occurred after the mudslinging campaigns against other wives. So it's more personal attacks, and I think that Jackson just took the more personal feel the same way everyone who voted would now feel more personally about their choices of vote.
I think in two instances, Jackson went against what would normally be a usual action for the president. So when he, in Worcester v. Georgia, when he just clearly went against the ruling of John Marshall in the Supreme Court, I think that was revolutionary because our government is structured so that that doesn't happen, and the president is supposed to be the person that keeps the structure of our government, but instead, Jackson in this instance said, you know what, I don't believe in that, and I'm going to do what I think is right, whether it complies with the system of our government or not. And I think in a less extreme action, but still different, the pet banks, he kind of just got around the national bank, which he didn't like, by putting all the money in the pet banks, and that didn't go that well for him, but he kind of found ways to get around the rules of our government instead of really believing in our government. And I think that was the reason for that was because he wasn't a former of the Constitution or an intellectual really. He just did what he believed in, and he thought that was what was best for the common man, and I think that was a way that he was different from other presidents.
Can you just recap the Worcester versus Georgia
Yeah.
case?
So the Supreme Court ruled that Georgia didn't have the authority to expel the Native Americans from their land, and Jackson didn't like that, so he went into Georgia with a lot of men and basically expelled them himself,
Okay.
and that led to the he passed the Indian Removal Act. That's what he did. And
That was before.
Oh, that was before.
Yeah,
Oh,
it was
okay.
1830 and then
This was
the
in
case was in 32.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, so, yeah, I'm sorry, but, so he went in and did that, took matters into his own hands, kind of.
Okay. Thanks.
Amalia?
I agree with what Alana was saying, that a lot of the change wasn't Jackson, but I also think that
it wasn't just the time that was changing, like I think if it was like a different president, like all the other presidents before, and like none of those presidents did the same type of thing, I don't think that it was just like the times changing. I think that like he caused a lot of the change like because of the things that Matt just said, so I don't think it's really like just the time that like the people that were changing. I think that the people that were changing were the, like was the reason that he got elected in the first place, but then I think once he was elected, like he clearly makes changes himself. Yeah.
I agree with what Molly said. I think that he represented what Americans wanted as change, and that's why he was elected, but then he sort of took it a step further once he was elected by like having his own unofficial cabinet. He like, I think it's called like the kitchen cabinet or something, which was just like his advisors that weren't actually the appointed advisors. In the case where he just sort of went behind the Supreme Court, which was supposed to have the power to overrule him. And I think the question is whether or not those steps that he took once elected or like represented what America wanted, or that's then him making change.
Yeah, just to go off of what you were saying about like what America wanted versus like what he wanted to see happen in the country. I think that like another thing that Jackson really like took into his own hands kind of was like the idea that the president was like the most representative of what the people of America wanted, that he was like the most democratically elected by the people, and that he had the right to like speak for the people almost, which like caused him to like veto a lot of things like the rechartering of the second bank and the Supreme Court case and, you know, the Indian Rule. Like he took a lot of power into the executive branch, which I think came from him feeling like he was like, you know, like his slogan, like the hero of the common man, and that he was the most democratic representative of the people. Yeah.
I have a question that I just want to pose to the group. So I was thinking about it and I'm not really sure. So Jackson favored states' rights and he didn't like the tariffs. But during the nullification crisis, he went far against Calhoun when he was trying to secede. So I understand that he didn't want to promote disunion, but where do you think that line for Jackson was crossed between supporting the states' rights and not allowing disunion?
I thought that Jackson didn't want power to this.
Jackson did want power of the states.
Yeah.
That's
Just
Jackson
not
was-
once it became disunion, like once it started to affect the
The
country as a
union,
whole.
yeah.
Yeah.
that's when you think it
Like,
changed.
I think he believed, what was is the term federalism, where there's like a balance of
Yeah.
power between
Yeah.
states, and
Yeah.
I think he believed in federalism, not like the United States are, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Well, yeah, I agree. I think he still wanted to be like a united country. I think he just wanted to be more power to the state than there was like under the previous president.
That makes sense.
Power of the states like entail being able to nullify things, like
No, I think that he wanted like the states to have some power, but I don't think he like wanted. I honestly, I think that he wasn't that intelligent, so I don't think he like was thinking about the fact that like this might actually affect the union. I think like he kind of was had two different images in his mind, one of like the United States being a unified country and one of the United States like being a place where states have power. And I don't think he put those two pieces together until he realized that they were gonna like affect each other.
Yeah. Anyone else wanna add or ask a question or anything like that? Rita?
Wait, what was that?
Oh, okay. Ask your question quick if you have one, because we have to start setting up the test.
I was bringing up in the article that I read earlier this morning that said Jackson asserts federal power over states' rights, and it was all about how he like.
Is that the Nullification Act? Or the crisis?
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
So I think that that's true that in that instance he did that. I
Yeah.
think that's only when it got to a point.
But only then, okay.
Okay, so ultimately, do we think change or continuity or a combination of both or?
I think more change and continuity.
Combination,
Yeah,
if I had
like,
to choose, then change.
Okay.
Yeah,
I-
but
yeah,
not
only-
Jackson specifically for change.
Yeah.
I think there's a combination. I think that like
Like,
socially
he did
there
change.
wasn't
He
change,
changed.
but like
I think he was
fiscally and like
change, but like
He
Government
was for
wise,
change, but he
there was
didn't. Like, what do you mean?
like he was. Okay, it's just we're done. We're done.
Okay, yeah, sorry to stop the discussion, but we have to set up the tables for the test back up to the way they originally were. Erin, will you do the camera? Cause I don't know how to do it.
I don't know how to do it either.
I'll figure it out.
There's a red.
Where's the red button?
Don't do that.
Everyone wave bye.
Bye.